She trusted her family with everything. But what happens when they betray her in the worst way? Watch as Emily uncovers shocking secrets that change her life forever. This is a story you won't forget. My name is Emily Carter, and I'm a marketing manager with what many would consider a successful career. I've worked tirelessly to build my name in the industry, often sacrificing parts of my personal life and even my well-being for the sake of my job. Long hours, tight deadlines, and high expectations. This has been my reality for years. And though I've reached a place where I can afford luxuries and some level of recognition, I've paid a price for it. I've been so focused on climbing the career ladder that I've often neglected the people closest to me, especially my family. They've always been a huge part of my life, but as time went on, I found myself giving more and more of my time, energy, and money to support them. My parents, in particular, were the ones I supported financially after my dad retired early due to health issues. My mom would always call me to thank me, telling me I was a blessing, and how much they appreciated my help. But deep down, I began to wonder if they truly saw me for anything other than the cash flow I provided. When I finished a major international project with a client, one that had been hanging over my head for months, I decided it was finally time to reward myself. I was burned out, exhausted, and in desperate need of a break. And then, just as I thought things couldn't get any worse, I found out that my family had planned a trip to Hawaii, a family vacation. For the first time in a long while, I could finally relax, spend time with the people I loved, and maybe, even just for a week, forget about the never-ending grind of work. I was excited. It was the perfect time. The pressure from work had eased up, and my heart had been yearning for a real vacation. It had been so long since I'd had a chance to reconnect with my parents, especially my younger sister Megan, who I had grown distant from over the years. The day before the trip, my mom texted me, confirming everything was set. "Don't worry about a thing," she said. "We've got the flight taken care of. Just focus on relaxing." Felt so reassuring. For the first time in months, I wasn't stressed. I could finally breathe easy. My bag was packed, the tickets were ready, and I was ready to leave all the stress of the past few months behind. The day of the flight, I woke up early, excited to begin the journey. The morning felt surreal. I hadn't felt this light in ages. No meetings, no emails, no calls. Just the thought of lying on a beach in Hawaii, listening to the waves crash, and spending quality time with family. I checked my phone one last time to make sure everything was in order. The flight was scheduled for 2 p.m. and was confirmed, just as my mom had said. There was no reason to worry. I arrived at the airport with plenty of time to spare, fully expecting to meet up with my family at the gate. But as I wandered through the bustling terminal, I couldn't help but feel something wasn't right. My parents weren't there. There were no familiar faces in the crowd. I scanned the crowd again and nothing. I pulled out my phone to call my mom, but it went straight to voicemail. Maybe they're running late, I thought. It's fine. They're probably stuck in traffic or something. But as the minutes passed, my heart began to race. There was no sign of them anywhere. I checked the flight screen just to make sure I hadn't missed something. The flight was still listed for 2 p.m., but when I looked again, I couldn't find any mention of their names or the flight code. That's when the worry began to creep in. I called my mom again, and this time it went straight to voicemail. I was starting to feel a bit panicked. Just as I was about to go to the counter and ask for assistance, my phone buzzed. A text from Megan. The message read, "I miss you so much, Em. Hope we can catch up soon. Sending love from Hawaii." At first glance it seemed sweet, but something about it felt off. There was no mention of when they were arriving or when I'd see them again. No urgency to tell me how much they missed me. Just a vague hope we can catch up soon. Megan had always been the bubbly, carefree sister. I loved her, but we'd grown apart in recent years. She was busy with her own life and I was consumed with mine. But this message, it didn't feel right. It didn't have the warmth or excitement I expected from her, especially given the context of the trip. Why wasn't she telling me more? Why didn't it feel as sincere as it should have? The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I didn't know what was going on, but everything inside me screamed that something wasn't adding up. I stood there in the crowded airport, feeling like I was drifting further and further from everything I thought I knew about my family. The thought of being left behind wasn't just hurtful, it was confusing. Why would they leave me out of this? Why would they choose to hurt me this way? I didn't have answers. All I had were questions. And a growing sense of unease that something much bigger than a missed flight was happening right before my eyes. I stood frozen in the middle of the bustling airport, my phone still clutched tightly in my hand. Megan's message lingered in my mind, spinning in circles. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. After taking a deep breath, I forced myself to make the call to my mother. I had to know the truth. "Mom?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady as my fingers dialed her number. The phone rang twice before she picked up. "Sweetie, where are you?" Her voice came through, smooth and comforting, just like it always did. But today it sounded distant. "I'm at the airport, Mom," I said, the unease creeping into my voice. "Where are you guys?" "I thought we were flying today at 2 p.m. A long pause filled the line before she replied, her voice tinged with that all-too-familiar forced sweetness. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. There's been a bit of a misunderstanding. The flight was yesterday." I froze, my stomach sinking. I could barely process what she was saying. "Yesterday? What do you mean yesterday?" "Mom, you told me it was today. I have the text messages to prove it." I was trying to stay calm, but anger was bubbling up inside me. My mind raced. How could she get the dates wrong? Why didn't they call me or at least confirm? "Oh, sweetie, there must have been some confusion. You know how it is. These things happen." Her tone was dismissive, like it was no big deal, and it only made my heart pound harder. She was lying. I knew it. I could hear it in the forced casualness of her voice. "Mom," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady, "this isn't just a mistake. You told me the flight was today. How could you have gotten it so wrong? Why didn't you tell me?" There was another long pause. I could hear her shuffling something in the background, maybe trying to come up with the next excuse. "Well, your sister made it just fine. We're all settled in at the resort now," she added quickly, trying to change the subject. Of course Megan made it. She always made it. The golden child. The one who never seemed to do anything wrong. I wasn't even surprised. "Of course she did," I muttered under my breath, but I could hear my own frustration leaking out. "So you purposely excluded me from the trip, didn't you?" "What?" "No, sweetheart, don't be dramatic," my mom responded, her voice taking on an edge. She was deflecting, trying to brush it off as nothing. But it wasn't nothing. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was deliberate. I felt my hands trembling as I held the phone. "This isn't a mistake, Mom. You planned this. You planned to leave me out of the trip. Why? Why would you do that?" My voice cracked as the weight of the betrayal hit me, and I couldn't hold back my anger any longer. "Calm down, Emily." My mom's voice turned colder, but I could hear the faintest tremor in it. "These things happen, okay? Let's just move past it. We'll talk about this when you're not so upset." But I couldn't move past it. I couldn't just let it go. "Don't call me dramatic, Mom. I'm not the one who planned to leave their daughter behind while taking her money." I ended the call, not waiting for her to respond. I couldn't hear any more lies. The anger had taken over, and I couldn't stand to listen to her anymore. I stood there, staring at the phone in my hand, as the noise of the airport swirled around me. The families, the laughter, the excitement. It all felt so far away. I was alone. And in that moment, I felt an emptiness inside me that I couldn't shake. My family had done this to me, and I couldn't understand why. I could feel tears welling up in my eyes, but I blinked them away. No, I couldn't cry. I had to think. I had to make sense of all this. My mind flashed back to the years I'd spent supporting them, financially and emotionally. When Dad retired early due to his arthritis, I was the one who stepped in. I paid their bills, covered the mortgage, took care of their medical expenses. I had given them everything. They had become so dependent on me. I had been their financial lifeline for years. But now, standing in that airport, I realized they never truly saw me. They saw a provider. Someone to rely on when things went wrong. And all the while I had been doing everything I could to earn their love, their approval. But now I saw the truth. I pulled my suitcase closer and sat down on the cold airport bench. The weight of everything felt unbearable. How could they do this? Why would they treat me like this after all I had done for them? They took from me without a second thought. And now they had taken the one thing I had been looking forward to, time with my family. The more I thought about it, the more my anger grew. It was like a fire that couldn't be extinguished. I had given so much, and in return I had been cast aside. I'd been excluded from the family vacation, not because of a mistake, but because of a plan. I reached for my phone again, determined to find more answers. I scrolled through old messages, trying to make sense of the situation. The more I read, the more I felt sick to my stomach. The conversations about the trip, every single one, had been carefully orchestrated. They had lied to me, manipulated me. Then something else caught my eye. I opened my banking app, my fingers shaking as I tapped on the transactions. And that's when I saw it. A large withdrawal I hadn't noticed before. Money taken out of my account just days before the trip. A withdrawal I never authorized. I stared at the screen, trying to process what I was seeing. How could they do this? How could they take money from me without telling me? Without any explanation? I felt my chest tighten as the reality set in. My parents had used me, not just for money but for everything. My time, my energy, my resources. I had been their ATM, their emotional punching bag, their safety net. And now it was clear to me they had planned this. They had been lying to me for months, if not longer. This wasn't about a vacation. This was about control. This was about manipulating me, keeping me in the dark, and using me to fund their lives. I closed the app and let out a shaky breath. I wasn't just hurt. I was furious. I had been played. And now I was going to make them pay. Not financially, but emotionally. They had taken too much from me. And now it was time for me to take control. The moment I hung up the phone with my dad, a wave of clarity washed over me. I had been suffocating in this toxic cycle for too long. The lies, the manipulation, the financial dependence, they were all coming to an end today. I had always believed that I was helping my family. I had convinced myself that it was my responsibility to support them financially, especially after Dad's early retirement. But now, after everything I had learned, after the betrayal, the deceit, it was clear that I was no longer seen as their daughter. I was just an ATM, a resource to be drained. They had used me for years and I had let them. I couldn't keep doing this. I couldn't keep pouring my time, my money, and my energy into a family that saw me as nothing more than a cash cow. The pain was almost unbearable, but the decision was made. I wasn't going to keep supporting them. Not anymore. I sat down at my kitchen table and opened my laptop. The first thing I did was log into my bank account. My hands trembled as I pulled up the joint account that I shared with my parents. I had opened it years ago to make things easier, so I could send them money for bills and expenses without hassle. But now it felt like a chain around my neck. I clicked on the Close Account button. It felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders, but also like I was closing a chapter of my life that I would never be able to get back. I had been a part of this family for so long, and I had been helping, believing I was doing the right thing. But now, I realized that I had been enabling their selfishness. Next, I called my insurance company and removed my parents as beneficiaries from my life insurance policy. It felt cold but necessary. I couldn't risk them taking even more from me, especially after everything that had happened. This was my life and I needed to protect it. The hardest part, however, was making the decision to stop sending them money. It had become so automatic. Every month I'd wire funds to cover the mortgage, the utilities, the medical bills. I had done it for so long that I didn't even think about it anymore. But now it was time for that to stop. I stared at the screen, my finger hovering over the send button, about to finalize the transfer that would clear out my savings. I had sent them thousands over the years, but it was always with the expectation of helping them get back on their feet. But now I realized they never intended to. They were using me and I had been too blinded by love or maybe guilt to see it. With a deep breath, I clicked Cancel Transfer. It was done. I sat back, feeling a mix of relief and guilt. I didn't want to hurt them, but I couldn't keep enabling them. I had to take care of myself now, and I had to let them figure things out on their own. But it wasn't long before the calls started. The first one came just a few hours after I had cut the financial ties. My phone rang and the name on the screen sent a chill down my spine. Mom. I hesitated for a moment, but then I answered. Emily, what's going on? Why haven't you transferred the money yet? We're in a tough spot right now. You know we need your help. Her voice was panicked, as if nothing had changed, as if I hadn't just made the hardest decision of my life. I clenched my jaw, feeling the anger surge again. No, Mom. I'm not sending any more money. I can't keep doing this. You've been using me for years and I'm done. I'm not your bank anymore. There was a long silence on the other end of the line, and then she spoke again, her voice softer, almost pleading. But we're family, Emily. You know we need you. You're our only hope. Don't be so cruel. I almost hung up. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. It was the same old guilt trip they always pulled, and I wasn't going to fall for it this time. I'm not being cruel, Mom. I'm protecting myself. You've had your chance, and I've given you everything. But now it's time for me to live my life. I can't keep sacrificing my future for you. I need to move on. I ended the call before she could say anything else. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. For the first time in years, I felt like I was in control of my own life again. But the next day, the messages came pouring in. First it was my dad. Then my mom again. And then Megan. They kept texting and calling, sending guilt-laden messages. How could you do this to us? After everything we've done for you? My dad wrote, "This is tearing the family apart. You're so selfish," Megan's message said. They were trying to manipulate me, trying to get me to second-guess my decision. But I wasn't backing down. I blocked them all. It wasn't easy, though. For the first time in my life, I felt completely alone. But at the same time, I felt a sense of freedom that I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't carrying the weight of their expectations, their guilt trips, or their financial burdens anymore. And that's when I found it. I was digging through some old files on my laptop, trying to distract myself from the emotional chaos that had consumed me for the past few days, when I stumbled upon something I hadn't seen before. Documents that didn't belong to me. I opened them up only to realize they were financial records. Bank statements, loan applications, and credit card bills that I hadn't seen in years. I started scrolling through the files and my heart sank. There it was. A loan under the name of my uncle, someone I had never thought would be involved in any of this. He didn't know about it, of course. But my parents had taken out a loan in his name without his permission. And what's worse, it seemed like they had planned to keep him in the dark about it. I couldn't believe it. Not only had my parents been lying to me and using me, but they had been using other members of the family as well. My uncle had no idea he was financially tied to their mess. The anger inside me intensified. I wasn't just angry about how they had treated me. I was furious at how they had manipulated everyone around them. I couldn't let this go. Not only had they betrayed me, but they had put other people at risk. I knew now that I had to do more than just cut ties. I had to make sure they couldn't hurt anyone else. The truth had to come out, and I was going to make it happen. After I had cut ties with my family, shutting down the joint account, removing them from my life insurance policy, and refusing to send them money anymore, I thought I was finally free. But freedom wasn't as peaceful as I imagined it would be. The guilt that had followed me for years wasn't gone. The feeling of betrayal lingered, like a shadow I couldn't shake off. I thought cutting the financial ties would be enough, but I couldn't stop thinking about all the ways my family had used me. They had drained me, emotionally, financially, and mentally. And just when I thought I was done, I uncovered something that shattered everything I thought I knew about them. It started when I went through some old paperwork I had stored in my closet. I was trying to organize my life, clear out the clutter that had built up over the years. As I sifted through receipts and old tax returns, I stumbled across something that caught my eye. A credit card statement under my name. I froze. I had never opened a credit card in my own name with the bank listed on the statement. Confused, I opened the document, and my stomach turned. It was a credit card that had been opened just a few months ago. The balance was high. The charges were frequent. But none of them were mine. The purchases were all linked to my parents, everything from groceries to luxury goods to payments for things I had never authorized. My heart pounded in my chest as I went over the details. They had used my personal information, my social security number, to open a new account. A credit card in my name that I didn't know about, loaded with debt I would be responsible for. And the worst part? I had no idea they were even doing this. I felt a cold sweat break out over my skin as the realization set in. They hadn't just used me for money, they had gone further. They had committed financial fraud. They had stolen my identity to open credit lines in my name. I wanted to scream, to throw my phone across the room. But I didn't. I stayed still, staring at the screen in disbelief. How could they do this? How could they go this far? I had been their daughter, the one who had supported them for so long. And this was how they repaid me? They hadn't just manipulated me. They had crossed a line that was impossible to forgive. My hands were shaking as I held my phone in one hand, scrolling through more documents, each one making my blood run colder. More charges, more purchases that were not mine. More debt, more lies. Suddenly my phone buzzed. It was a message from Megan. For a moment I just stared at the screen, unsure whether I should even open it. But something inside me told me I needed to. I had to know if she was involved in this as well, or if she had been in the dark like me. I opened the message. Emily, it read. I don't know where to start. Please call me. I took a deep breath, my fingers trembling as I dialed her number. She answered on the second ring, her voice quiet and filled with uncertainty. She said softly. I don't even know where to begin. But I need to tell you everything. Megan, what's going on? I asked, my voice tight with a mix of anger and confusion. What do you know about all of this? About the credit card, the debt, the lies? Megan paused for a moment, and I could hear her taking a shaky breath on the other end. I've known about it for a while, she admitted. I didn't want to be involved. I didn't want to believe it was happening. But I've been pulled into all of it. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to hurt you, Emily. My chest tightened. My sister, my own sister, knew about the lies. She had been part of this twisted web of deception, and she had kept it from me. You knew? You knew and didn't tell me? I asked, feeling the anger rising in my throat. I didn't know how, she said, her voice breaking. I didn't want to make things worse. I felt trapped too. I didn't want to be like them. But I didn't have the courage to say anything until now. I'm so sorry, Emily. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to lash out at her. How could she not tell me? How could she have stayed silent while I was being manipulated, while I was being used? But there was another part of me that understood her fear. She had been in the same toxic situation I had been in for so long, and maybe she hadn't known how to break free. I don't even know who they are anymore. I whispered, my voice barely audible. I thought they were my family. I thought I was doing the right thing by helping them. But they've been using me. They've been stealing from me. I can't believe it. I know, Megan said softly. I know. I've been feeling so guilty for not saying something sooner. But I was scared. They've been controlling everything, Emily. And I didn't know how to get out of it. Megan paused before continuing. But we can stop this. We have to stop it. We can't let them continue to do this to us or to anyone else. You're not alone in this anymore. I sat there for a moment, the weight of everything crashing down on me. Megan wasn't just an accomplice in all of this. She was a victim too. And now maybe, just maybe, she could help me bring everything to light. We could fight back together. I'm so tired, Megan continued. I'm tired of them making us feel like we have to take care of them. They're not the people we thought they were. They've been taking advantage of us for years and we've let them. But not anymore. I want to help you. Her words hit me like a tidal wave. I had been so focused on my own anger and betrayal that I hadn't realized Megan was just as trapped as I was. Together we could expose the truth. We could protect ourselves and take back control of our lives. Thank you. I whispered, my voice full of gratitude. Thank you for telling me the truth. I'm with you, Megan said, her voice firm. We'll get through this. Together. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't alone. We had a plan now. We had each other. And we were going to bring the truth to light no matter what it took. It wasn't long before I stood face to face with my parents. The meeting had been arranged, with the promise that it would be a chance to work things out. But in my heart, I knew it wasn't about reconciliation anymore. It wasn't about fixing things. This was about taking control of my life again. After years of being manipulated and used. When I walked into my parents' living room, the air was thick with tension. My mother sat at the table, her face as calm as ever, but I could see the nervousness in her eyes. My father, on the other hand, looked like he had been bracing for a confrontation for weeks. Megan was there too, sitting quietly by my side, her presence a quiet support. I'm glad you could all come, I said, my voice steady despite the rage still simmering inside me. But we need to talk. We need to talk about what's been happening. I could see my mother's shoulders tense. She opened her mouth to speak, but I raised my hand to stop her. I wasn't here to listen to excuses anymore. I'm not interested in hearing about misunderstandings or mistakes. I've seen the evidence. The credit card in my name, the loans, the fraudulent charges. You've been using me and you've crossed a line. My father shifted uncomfortably in his chair, but he didn't speak. Instead, my mother looked at me with a mixture of guilt and defiance. Emily, she began, her voice laced with a forced calm. You don't understand. We were just trying to make things easier. You're doing so well and we thought it was fine. Fine. I echoed. You thought it was fine to steal my identity and drain my savings? You thought it was fine to use me like a personal bank account for your convenience. My voice shook, but I wasn't backing down. Please, Emily, my mother continued, but her words were hollow. It wasn't like that. We just needed help. Things got out of hand. Things got out of hand? I asked incredulously. You don't get it, do you? You've been lying to me, using me for years. And now you expect me to just forgive you. The anger I had been holding inside for so long was pouring out, but I wasn't angry just for myself anymore. I was angry for the person I had become. So desperate to please them, so willing to sacrifice everything for their approval. It stops here, I said, my voice firm. I'm not your financial safety net anymore. I'm done. You've taken too much from me and now I'm taking back control. You'll have to figure this out on your own. The room was silent for a long moment, and I could feel the weight of my words sinking in. I had made my decision and I wasn't going to back down. I wasn't going to be their emotional punching bag or their ATM anymore. My father finally sighed, rubbing his forehead as if the weight of the situation had finally dawned on him. My mother's eyes filled with tears, but I didn't flinch. I had cried enough for both of us. I want you to sign this, I said, pulling a legal document from my bag. It was a repayment agreement I had drawn up with the help of my lawyer. It outlined exactly how my parents would repay the money they had stolen from me. I didn't expect them to be happy about it, but I wasn't asking for their approval anymore. With a heavy heart, my father took the pen. He didn't say a word as he signed the paper, his hand shaking slightly. My mother followed suit, though her tears only seemed to deepen the sense of sorrow in the room. But I wasn't there to make them feel better. I was there to reclaim my life. When it was over, I stood up and gathered my things. My parents didn't say a word as I left their house. I wasn't sure if they felt regret or anger, but I didn't care. I had done what needed to be done. I had taken back control, and for the first time in years I felt free. The next day, I made the decision that would change everything. I was going to go to Hawaii. But not with my family. I was going alone. It wasn't the family vacation I had imagined, but it was exactly what I needed. This wasn't about escaping or running away. It was about taking the time to heal, to find myself again. I packed my bags, bought a solo flight, and set off for a place I had only ever dreamed of. I wasn't running from my family, but I was running towards something far more important, myself. When I landed in Hawaii, the beauty of the place immediately took my breath away. The vast blue sky, the soft sands, the gentle rhythm of the waves. They all felt like a reminder that there was so much more to life than the toxic patterns I had been trapped in for so long. I spent the next few days exploring the island. I hiked through lush green forests, watched sunsets from the beach, and swam in the crystal clear waters. I found peace in the solitude, in the quiet moments where I could reflect on the past and embrace the present. For the first time in years, I wasn't constantly worried about what my parents needed or how they would manipulate me next. I didn't have to watch every word I said, every decision I made. I was free. And that freedom, though it came with pain, was something I had been searching for without even realizing it. As I sat on the beach one evening watching the colors of the sky shift from gold to purple, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I didn't need my family's approval to be happy. I didn't need their constant demands to feel worthy. I had been strong enough to stand up for myself, to break free from their hold, and now I was strong enough to live for me. When I returned from Hawaii, I wasn't the same person who had left. I was different. I was free. I had chosen myself. And for the first time in my life, I felt whole. I knew there would still be challenges ahead. My parents would try to manipulate me again. Megan might struggle to find her own way out of the web they had woven. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I had taken back my power, and that was all I needed to start living the life I deserved.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for updates on new videos. See you next time.